Your car guy here. Today's project on the Mercedes W211 wagon, this is an E500, is to change the heater control valve, or the hot water valve, or coolant valve you could call it. And the reason that we're doing this is because we're getting hot air constantly blowing out the rear vents. But even in the front, the air conditioning is struggling more than it should. It works, but it's not cooling as well as it can. Now, I've checked the air conditioning pressures and everything is working exactly as it should, but it seems that there's a common issue with the heater valves allowing too much hot water or hot coolant to pass into the heater core, thereby making the air conditioning struggle to overcome that hot water or hot coolant. So as we're doing this, the first thing we'll need to do, we've raised our hood, we're gonna take our wiper arms off by removing those nuts. And we're going to remove this cover because our valve is actually right down connected in here, right underneath of that. Shouldn't be a bad job. So you've got some, looks like 13 millimeter nuts. There's 3 of them to take the arm assemblies off. Next, we'll start removing this trim. We can take and pull this seal up out of our way. And we don't have to take it. It goes full perimeter of the hood. You can take it all the way off or just pull off the part that runs up over this plastic tray. After removing the nuts that hold the wiper arms on, you'll just need to give a little bit of a wiggle as you're lifting in order to get the assembly to pop up. And just kind of wiggle it back and forth and maybe pry slightly under it, but just be careful. It's not going to take a lot to pop them loose and pry them up. Next, I'm going to take a T20 and remove the 3 screws that are holding this sensor in place. And then I'll just leave it attached to its cord and set it out of the way. Next, in each corner, we're going to have, these are a plastic rivet. It's actually a Phillips screw center. But you'll see what you got to do is get this center up and out so you can pop out this plastic rivet. Somebody has already kind of stripped this. These are normally a Phillips head, but you usually have to, when they're like this, see how I've got the knife in there to kind of pry up and put some force pulling up. Then I can take my screwdriver, unscrew that center, or just push that center up out of there to pop this rivet out of place. We're going to have another one here and another one right there. This one is a little bit different style rivet. Maybe it's been replaced at some point. You just pry under the center, pop it up, that'll unlock it, and then you can pull out the entire rivet. Once you have the plastic rivets out, you'll want to work your way across and gently pry up. There's some plastic locks underneath there that you'll need to pop loose as you work your way across, and then we can slide this rain tray out of our way. As you lift the rain tray, you're going to see there's a drain hose right here. You'll simply be able to pull it off and get it out of your way. With the rain tray removed, we'll see we have 1, 2, 3 bolts, and this whole wiper linkage motor assembly should lift up out. We'll have a wiring connection coming to it that we'll need to disconnect underneath as we lift it. But then we can remove the wiper assembly and get to our heater valve, which is just right here. As you lift the motor assembly up, you can see there's this electrical connection. You got the little tab on each side that you're going to push in, and then you can just unplug the wiring. So see, I have a tab there, push them in and wiggle your wires loose. Just like that. Now we have access. Lift that up, and there is our heater control valve. Before I take my hoses off, I'm going to go ahead and drain the coolant out of the car. I'm going to go ahead and, while I've got this apart, I'm going to do a coolant swap. But I'm going to show you, and I've just lifted the front of the car a little bit to show you where the drain cock is. Here on the side of the radiator, right here. You'll just turn that counterclockwise. You can put a little hose off this nipple down into a bucket, but you'll want to get something to catch the fluid and open that valve to drain your radiator. To help it drain faster, take off your radiator cap. I say radiator cap, this is in the surge tank, but it does not use a cap on the radiator itself. This is the cap, and it'll allow air in, which will allow the coolant to flow out. With our coolant drained, we have 3 connections to undo. So first, this hose right here. This little clip, and I'll try to get it to focus right there, you're just gonna wanna take a screwdriver or a hook or some pliers and just lift up this metal clip, pry it up out of the groove it's in, and it'll unlock that hose. Sometimes shoving the hose back into position or back into the valve, and I'll show you up here on the top of the valve. This is the one going into the heater core. Same thing. We're just gonna pull that clip up. That will release the hose. Okay. This one right here, we're gonna take a pair of pliers, or you can use hose clamp pliers, but you're gonna just squeeze these 2 ends together and then work it back down onto the hose here to get it out of the way. See if you can see, squeeze it, and then I'm gonna walk it right down off of the valve. I'm trying to do that one-handed here. With that off the valve now, this hose can be pulled off and just set out of your way. We'll have this, which is the seal that seals from the firewall up to the rest of the vehicle. We'll just pull that to the inside for right now. We can take out this clip, and we can take out this clip here. With the clip at the front or through the firewall removed, we can then work this hose out of our valve. And it may take a little working. Be patient, be gentle with it, but we're gonna pull it forward and out right here. You can see the clip for the lower side of the valve right down there, and it is accessible from this side, so right where the tip of my screwdriver's going. I don't really have a good light in there. You'll see that small metal clip, it'll pull out towards the passenger side to unlock that, and at this point, with the front hose loose, we can take our valve out. With that lower clip out, we can now work our valve forward off the heater core, and then we'll just wiggle it on out of position. Now, if you are not getting enough room, you can take this firewall seal and get it out of your way. Work it out so you don't have it in the way to prevent you from pulling this up out. And there we go. The valve is free. Once the valve is free, you're going to flip it upside down so that you can access the electrical connector, which is a simple tab right there where my thumb is. You're going to press, and then you can slide that connector off of the valve. All right, well, there we have old valve, new valve. Notice the new valve has all these clips down in place where we pulled these out to get the hoses out. The new valve also has new internal O-ring seals here. Sometimes for assembly, it's helpful to just put a little bit of coolant or water on those when you're sliding them in, and that'll help it to slide in a little bit easier. You'll want to take, and first we're going to hook up the electrical connector when we put this in, then we'll slide into the heater core on this end. There we are, our electrical connector is connected. Now we can take our valve and we'll work it down over our heater core, and then we can simply make sure we shove it all the way back in until both those clips have locked in tight. With both our clips locked in tight, we're going to want to put our firewall seal back in place before we put the front hose on, and we'll just work it down over the front with this going around into this groove right here on the neck of this hose, and then these grooves will seal into the firewall right at the front. With that firewall seal in place, we can then put our front hose into place. Now you'll need to line up, there is that ridge on the top, and you can see there's a slot in there that it goes into. Let's see if I can do it without blocking the camera. You'll want to line that up right there and shove it in until the clip locks down in place. With the front locked in, we'll want to now put this hose back on right here. Slide it all the way up until it stops on this peg. Now you'll notice something really kind of neat. There are alignment little pegs and tabs on these Mercedes. Then you're going to take your pliers and you're going to bring this clamp right back into place to seal that up. All right, with that clamp back in place, we're now ready to reinstall our wiper motor assembly. We'll just put that rain / dust flap, just let it lay back down, and we'll set the whole wiper motor assembly back in, put in the 2 mounting nuts and the 1 mounting bolt. Don't forget to plug in the electrical right here back to your wiper motor, otherwise you won't have any wipers. Wiper motor assembly is back in and tightened up. Next, we're going to put our rain tray assembly back in, making sure that we hook back up this drain tube as we come in with the rain tray and set it in place. It has the little tabs that lock into each of these. As we're putting it back in, you just press it down to lock those. All right, our rain tray's back into place, and like I said, you'll just press along that top edge, that'll lock those in. Next, we'll put our hood seal weather stripping and just fit it over. Slide it down back into place right where it was. All the way around. We'll get that put on, and we'll put back in our 4 plastic rivets, the 1 on each corner. And if you broke any of those plastic rivets, they're really cheap and easy to replace as far as buying new ones, so not a big deal if you broke some. Now, I didn't show this on the disassembly, but you do have a washer hose and electrical connection that'll just slide right in here on the rain tray. That's really simple. With our rivets in, we can then take and put our wiper arm assemblies back in place. We'll lay them right at the bottom of their sweep, right where they were before. You can almost see your dust lines to help you line up exactly where you were and put the nuts back on and tighten them up. We don't want to forget to put our little sensor back in right here. And note that the wiring was routed down right through this edge here and underneath the sensor, just like that. And we'll put our 3 screws back in that are T20s to hold the sensor. All right, there we have it. It's all back together with the wiper arms bolted in. Now all you got to do is don't forget to close the drain plug on your radiator, refill your coolant, run it, and bleed the system until you've got all the air out of the cooling system. All right, the job's all done. The only thing that took any real time is just bleeding the cooling system. Just be patient with it, keep adding coolant, run it up to temp, make sure you keep doing that. As you drive it, you may get a little bit more that it takes into the system, so you'll want to have a little bit with you just to make sure it's all bled out and clean. Now I've got my heat's working great, my AC is working great, so that took care of my issue of it constantly pumping heat into the vehicle. This is your car guy. Please subscribe to the channel and like and share the videos.